Today, we're tackling a number that honestly kind of haunts almost everyone planning their financial future. What if $2 million isn't actually the retirement number you should be chasing?
Because, when people talk about retirement, they absolutely love fixating on the size of the nest egg. 1 million, 2 million, $3 million. But here's the reality. For some Australians, 2 million could be more than enough. For others, it might not even come close. And the difference really comes down to one crucial thing most of us completely overlook: how much you actually spend.
See, the raw number sitting in your super account just doesn't tell the whole story. You're no longer in the business of building wealth. You're stepping into a phase where you're using that wealth to fund potentially decades of your life. The balance is just a storage mechanism, really. What actually matters is what that money needs to do for you once your regular paycheck permanently stops.
So, let's dive into part 1, what your savings actually buy.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at what different levels of savings realistically buy us, assuming a pretty standard 4% withdrawal rate. Let's start with $500,000. Now, for someone approaching retirement, $500,000 sounds massive, right? But if you take out 4%, that gives you about $20,000 in your first year. Suddenly, that massive balance looks, well, a whole lot smaller.
Think about a modest retiree living on that. From that $20,000, they have to cover the absolute basics: food, electricity, insurance, transport, and healthcare. Now, if your home is fully paid off and your lifestyle is super modest, this might just work alongside other income. But let's be real, it leaves almost zero breathing room. There's really not much left over for regular travel, upgrading the car, or just spontaneously going out to dinner.
Okay, so let's step up to the $1 million mark. This is where the picture really starts to shift. Doubling the balance instantly doubles your potential income to $40,000 a year. Suddenly, you have a bit more flexibility. You can maybe pack a suitcase for some occasional travel, spend money on hobbies, and if that mortgage is totally gone, this money goes much, much further. But there's a catch here. Retirement is not a one-year exercise. It's a 20 or even 30-year journey. Your spending in your early 60s might be pretty high. Think travel, home renovations, the fun stuff. But by your mid-70s, you'll probably settle into a quieter lifestyle. And then, by your late 80s, rising healthcare and aged care expenses really start to take priority. So $1 million is a solid starting point, for sure. But remember, it has to last through some drastically different decades.
Now, stepping up to $1.5 million generates around $60,000 in that first year. For a lot of Australians, this is the sweet spot where retirement starts feeling genuinely comfortable. You have significantly more room for travel and some serious flexibility. But perhaps most importantly, you get peace of mind. You don't have to stress that a single unexpected bill is going to completely derail your future.
But then, we reach the number that grabs everyone's attention: $2 million. At that exact same 4% rate, a $2 million nest egg yields an $80,000 first-year withdrawal.
And here is an absolutely crucial detail that is so often misunderstood. An $80,000 retirement income feels vastly different from an $80,000 working salary. Why? Well, for someone age 60 or over, eligible super income streams are generally tax-free. So the cash you actually have available to spend every week can be way higher than what a working person takes home after the taxman takes his cut.
Having a $2 million portfolio doesn't mean you have to go out and force yourself to spend $80,000 every single year either. Rather, it gives you something way more valuable than just luxury. It gives you options. You literally have the freedom to spend more in the years when you're super active, and then keep a solid reserve tucked away for when life gets a bit more expensive down the track.
All right, let's move into part 2, the hidden retirement variables.
Because generating income is really only half the battle. Imagine two identical stick-figure retirees who both have a $1.5 million balance. Retiree A owns their home outright, completely removing one of the biggest regular expenses from their budget. Retiree B, though, is still shackled to a large mortgage with massive monthly repayments. They have the exact same retirement balance, right? But they absolutely do not have the same retirement.
And aside from housing debt, you've got to navigate some invisible risks too. If a major market downturn hits right after you retire, selling your investments while their value's in the gutter can permanently damage your portfolio. Then there's inflation, that slow, relentless rise in the cost of groceries, utilities, and insurance over 20 years. Your plan absolutely needs a cash buffer so you aren't forced into desperate decisions when these hidden variables pop up.
Which brings us perfectly to part 3. How much will life actually cost? This is arguably the biggest trap of all. The major mistake people make is looking at someone else's $2 million and treating it like a universal finish line, like it's some sort of competition to win. But the reality, it's not about the biggest number. It's about building enough security to support your specific, unique lifestyle.
So to actually solve this giant puzzle, you need to work backwards. Step 1 is definitely the most critical. Calculate what your desired life actually costs. Forget the nest egg for a minute. Once you know your costs, step 2 is estimating the income needed to cover that. Step 3 is adding up all your super, home, savings, and debt. And finally, step 4 is working backwards to test if your plan is actually realistic.
At the end of the day, true retirement wealth isn't about flying first class, massive luxury houses, or impressing the neighbors with your super statement. True wealth is simply having the freedom to wake up in the morning and know that your time belongs to you. It's the ability to stop working without constantly panicking about what happens next.
So as you plan your future, stop asking yourself if you can reach $2 million. Instead, I want you to ask yourself this: what kind of life do you want that money to pay for? Because once you figure out that answer, it completely changes the number you're chasing. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.